Men do feel a sense of guilt. They do. They feel bad about not being present for their children. But then actually what happens is it transitions right from guilt into this kind of justification of why that's okay because they are breadwinners.
Hi, I'm Professor Leah Ruppanner. As a sociologist, I've made it my life's mission to take down every ridiculous gender myth out there. Like, do pretty people get paid more, or are women better multitaskers? This is Misperceived.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Misperceived. On today's episode, I'm going to talk to you about guilt. Guilt and what to do about guilt. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but I have become quite an Instagram sensation. It is a real weird moment, but I've been just posting my silly, typical self a little bit more on the socials so that you can see me in a very different way, or the same way, my truest way. And it has been going very well, and things have moving and people are interacting, and I am getting both love and hate. I am basically becoming an influencer. Can you imagine? Okay. And one of the posts I did that got the most views was this thing about, do men actually feel guilt? Now, one of the reasons why I was posting this was because I'm working on a research project where we're looking at how people feel guilt in their families, right? Like this guilt about not being enough for their kids and guilt overall. And one of the things that in doing this is I ended up on this different article, right? Like this article that was talking about men and guilt. And I asked people online, like, do you actually think that men feel guilt about not being good enough in the family? One of the reasons why this came up was the article basically said that, like, yes, men do feel a sense of guilt. They do. They feel bad about not being present for their children. But then actually what happens is it transitions right from guilt into this kind of justification of why that's okay because they are breadwinners. So they go like, yeah, I feel kind of bad about not being there for my kid. I'd like to spend more time with them. I'd like to be more present. But my financial contribution, I need to bring money in. I need to work. I need to give them the things that they need. And so that moment of guilt transitions, it kind of becomes like negated. It becomes neutralized based on breadwinning expectations. Like it's okay that I'm doing what I'm doing because I'm contributing in a different way. And so when I put this online, man, people were real angry with me asking this question. And a lot of men came in the comments and said things like, yeah, I do feel guilt. But then they would also say like, I do feel guilt, but I have to turn that guilt into action, right? Like I can feel guilty about not being present with my kids, but then I start to do something. I need to do something about that. I can't be in this passive emotion of guilt. I need to step into action and activity. And one man said to me, like, hey, actually, I do feel guilt, but I step into action, but then I also always want to give my family everything that they need. I want to show up for them. I'm always trying to make sure my kids feel happy and my partner feels happy and my wife is happy and everyone is feeling good. And often feeling good is done through action. So I want to know what you think about this. How is it resonating for you, right? Like, is it in fact true that there's this transition from guilt to action? And as a sociologist, we would say like the breadwinner norms are kind of coming in between that, like, for men, like I feel guilty about not being present. I want to be more committed to my kids. I want to be there, but I need to provide financially. And then that kind of negates the guilt or it pushes people into action. Is that true? Do you find that to be true? I'll say to you, one of the challenges is it's very hard for us to recruit in men into our interviews and into basically our interviews. They often won't take the time to do it. And what happens is we do sometimes get more educated men who are more interested in this. So we get some sort of selection bias. When I did my article with Casey Schiebling, Kate Danger, and Sophie Squires on men's kind of mental loads, the logics that they're using, a lot of the men would say like, I want to be a better dad. I want to be different to my dad. I don't have a role model. I'm trying to connect in. So, but these are highly educated dads more often. And what was kind of interesting about the conversation I'm starting to get online is I'm getting a more range of views on how people feel about these ideas. And a lot of the dads talked about, traditional gender norms and what it means to be a man and how manhood has shifted and changed over time and how to step into those new roles. And that is something that sociologists have long shown, right? The gender roles have changed really, really quickly for men. And it's hard for them to step in and step up. And what does that mean? And how do they negotiate that? It's a really tumultuous time. And that is actually, we heard that too in the mental load interviews, right? Like that men were having a hard time figuring out where they need to go next. So I want to give you I'm going to kind of do this podcast in two halves. The first half is okay, so if this is what's happening for men, does it connect? Does it resonate? What do you think? I'd love your feedback. Do men feel guilt? Is guilt an emotion that's kind of more transient for men and it moves both into negation and then action? And then on the parallel, why does that same process not happen for women? Because there is so much research and so much evidence showing that women hold an incredible amount of guilt around being good enough for the family, good enough in everything. And why does it not have that negation? Why do we not go I feel guilty about whether I am being a good mom, but actually look at all the ways that I'm contributing to my family. And that guilt actually then should become negated and move into maybe action, because guilt is kind of a wasted emotion, right? What is the benefit of guilt besides self-hate, self-destruction, self-frustration? It doesn't bring us more. It actually brings us less. So is there value in feeling guilt? I don't know that there is. Or let me say it this way. All emotions are valuable because they're signaling something to you. But if guilt is tied to feeling not good enough, then we need to figure out whether our standards are too high and whether we need to do more. We either need to feel guilt to motivate ourselves or demotivate ourselves. So in this kind of area, I want to talk to you about another article that I found in this whole process of guilt exploration. And it's an article that was written by Priya Fielding Singh and Marianne Cooper. And they talk about this emotional management of motherhood. So they're trying to understand, why do mothers have high levels of guilt? And what do they do about that? How do they respond to that? And what it does is it pulls on Marianne Cooper's 2014 study where she looked at families during really insecure times, like financial pressure. And what she found was that there was this really big class divide in how mothers responded to children's futures. That if you were more affluent, had more money, that what happened was when there was this period of insecurity, that mothers actually increased. The way they coped was what she calls upscaling. And this is this idea that they raised the bar on what their children or child needed to ensure that they were on track, achieving their goals, or successful. I'm going to just pause and I'm going to say that again, because I want you to hear what she's saying. What she's saying is, when there is moments of insecurity or uncertainty, those with the greatest resources actually increase the bar. They go, oh man, this doesn't look good. We need to do more. And what good motherhood is increases, what good children are increases, and the pressure intensifies. And what she talks about is that this is really activating this worry work, this feeling worried that our children are falling short, that our children are failing, that our children are not being set up for success. And then I, as an individual, have to identify what I need to do to fix it. And that is often raising the bar on what makes good parenthood. In contrast, in this 2014 study, she talks about how mothers who are at the lower end of the class ladder, who are, earn less or less affluent, they do the opposite. They downscale. They start to lower the bar. So as financial pressures come in and we can't achieve what we set out to do, they go, let's reduce the bar. And let's say good is good enough, right? I'm gonna create a sense of security or safety by lowering my standards and saying, I can't deliver to my children what I promised before because the economic times have shifted. And so I'm going to lower the bar and be satisfied with what I can do. And this was a way in part to reduce their anxiety when challenges or difficult circumstances emerged. In the 2022 article, they talk a little bit about kind of 3 strategies that mothers do in terms of upscaling. And I thought they were so salient. And then I'll talk to you about what this means for through the mental load. But I thought this is so salient that I wanted to share it through. So like, let's say we're all upscaling. Let's say those of us with higher resources and economic means, what we're doing is constantly upscaling our lives. It's funny because I have a lot of academic friends and I have a lot of very highly educated friends. And what I see in them is optimization. And I think they're related to each other. It's like we upscale in terms of what we expect our lives to be. And then we spend all of our brain energy trying to figure out how to optimize, how to make sure we are making the absolute best decision to lead to the best outcome through our thinking work. This can be such a freaking trap, right? Because you are spending all this time trying to get the perfect decision, the perfect outcome, the perfect, that what you're doing is actually you're burning through your mental load energy in ways that can actually be unstrategic, lead to burnout, and may not actually lead to better decision making, right? If every decision is a 10 between what you buy at the grocery store to how you actually negotiate in the workplace, and you're giving each the same weight and the same energy and the same heaviness, then that is actually wasted optimization. That's inefficient. Sometimes it isn't worth our brain energy to try to make the best absolute decision about which blanket, which comforter to buy in which spot. Sometimes we got to make some quick decisions that could be mistakes because our mental load energy is just too precious. But there is this movement towards like optimization and what she's calling upscaling. I'm gonna pause. What do you think? How is this hitting for you? How are we doing? Okay, good. In addition to this, so when they talk about upscaling in this article, she says there's kind of three things that mothers do. Marianne and Priya are talking about like kind of three strategies they do. The first is this raising the bar, which is consistent with what was found in the 2014 article, right? Like you start to say, okay, everything's insecure. I don't know. Let me raise the bar about what makes a good parent. Let me raise the bar about what makes a good family. Let me raise the bar about, what it is to show up well in the world. In their article, they're talking about food management, and how you feed your family. So it's like, I'm super stressed at work. I'm totally overwhelmed, but actually every day my child needs to have a home cooked meal. It's bad for me to take shortcuts, right? Like it's bad for me to go to the McDonald's drive-through because actually my child deserves fully cooked organic meals every single day. The second thing they do is start to seek control. How do I get control in this circumstance that feels totally out of control? So I'm going to raise the bar. Then I'm going to start to seek greater control about how things are done. And then the third thing is I'm going to start to compare myself to others. I'm going to do a social comparison. I'm going to start to go, well, that person's doing it better. That person's home cooked meals. That person is actually increasing their nutritional value within their kids. Now they're talking about food works, but I think this would work across different domains. And we heard elements of this in the research where it's like, all of a sudden your standards get too high. You're starting to go like, okay, everything's insecure. I need to take control. I need to raise the bar about what it is to live a good life. I need to now pull all of that back into me because I'm solely responsible for making sure everything happens as it should. Family is running. My career is running. I'm in charge of that. And let me look sideways to see what other people are doing to see if I do well, if I'm doing well. And often that can lead, as this article talks about, to an incredible amount of cognitive labor and an incredible intensification of guilt. It's like you come into this with high levels of guilt about like, am I doing a good enough job? And then you implement strategies that are only going to actually make you feel like you are not doing a good enough job. You are going to upscale your standards. You're going to say, I'm going to do even better. You're going to raise the bar. You're going to seek control. And you're now going to find the points of social comparison that prove that you are failing at this because that person is doing it better. Let's stop this nonsense. Let's take a minute and take a deep breath and pause. If this is how you're operating through the world, I want to tell you it makes absolute sense to me. Let me tell you why. Part of the reason why we do this is in part because we can't expect other areas of our life anymore to give us support. Many of us cannot expect our families to come in and offer that support. Many of us cannot expect community to deliver for us the things that we actually maybe could have gotten in the past. Many of us cannot expect our governments to provide us with, high quality childcare or healthcare or aged care or high quality education, in part because we've eroded all the social structures that in the past would have ensured that those of us who were at the bottom were moving up, those of us who were at the top were filtering stuff down, that we were giving opportunity to those of us who needed it at this moment in time. We have cut almost all of that. We've cut community, we've cut family, we've cut a lot of the social safety net. And what we've done is isolated people and said to them, you are now solely responsible for making sure that you are giving everyone what they need. And the world has become, we've done all of that at exactly the moment when the world has become more complex, when actually it's even more difficult to ensure that my child can go to a very good university, because we've eroded it all. We've made it more competitive. We told them that this is the gateway to their life. We've reduced scholarships. We've said we no longer do merit. We've made it incredibly expensive. And we've started to say, like, you're solely responsible for making sure your future is bright and you have to do everything that you can. We've also opened up social comparison online. You can now see what other people have, how other people do things. And you can see their perfectly cultivated life. I mean, online images are not real, right? Like, what we see online is often not what is happening behind the scenes. And yet this can be our point of social comparison. And it actually increases the pressure on you as an individual. We've individualized all of this and put so much pressure on us to overcome structural problems. Now, what can we do? In my book, Drained, Reduce Your Mental Load to Do Less and Be More, one of the things I talk about is how do you understand where these kind of traps are laid for you? And second, how do we take a good is good enough approach? How do we start to see when some of this investment is actually fully wasted? How do we see when raising the bar, seeking control, and leveraging social comparison actually does not help us lead better, more meaningful, or more productive lives? How do you get clear on your goals, your dreams, your ambitions, see where you want to go, and start to align in that way? You do not need to raise the bar or upscale on everything. You might want to raise the bar and upscale on the things that are important to you. You might want to raise the bar and upscale and set goals for where you want to go so you can grow, shift, and actually achieve what you were put on this earth to do. That I want you to do, but you cannot raise the bar on everything. You cannot seek control where control cannot be sought. The world is unpredictable. Life is unpredictable. We are doing our best. Good is good enough. And social comparison is the thief of joy. I feel like I didn't make that up. It's somewhere in the world and I probably got it wrong. But if you want to feel just crappy about all the great things you've achieved, start to compare yourself to others. What I do, take it with a grain of salt. I've always tried to compare myself to myself, right? Like, what can I do and where can I go that would be my best self? And sometimes I hit it and that's pretty great. And sometimes I can't do any better. Like sometimes it's like, man, this is the best I can do at that thing. Like I'm just never going to get better at, I don't know, art, or I'm never going to get better at hand-eye coordination. It'll never happen. I'll always drop something. I'll always spill something. It's just, that's done. And so figuring out where is your own, instead of doing the social comparison, where is your own strengths and where, really, let's be honest, have you gone as far as you're going to go? And then let's stop looking sideways to others and start looking just about what do I need to do to create a life with more meaning, joy, and love. So my request for you all is, I think that guilt sometimes can be a signal for us about where we might need some self-improvement, but often it is emotion tied up with expectations, social norms, control, and fear. And so can we drop a lot of this guilt and start to move through our worlds with a little bit more love and light? If you want to check out this very interesting post I did online, you can go to my Instagram at prof.Leah Ruppanner, and it's there. And also you can follow all the great things I'm telling you about my life. You'll get to see me laying down, sitting up in different pajamas every single day. It's like the only moment I end up filming these things is first thing in the morning after I wake up. So if you want to see the rotation of my pajamas, please keep following the videos. As per always, I love you. Thank you for listening to Misperceived, where you don't need a PhD, you just get to come hang out with me. And my goal, again, is for you to lighten up a little bit. You can check out more on lightenlab.com, lightenlab.com, if you want to see where your mental load is right now, what's happening for you, how it's shifting and changing, and just have me blab at you in a range of different ways. You'll love it. Have a wonderful week. I love you, and goodbye. Mwah.
We are so lucky and grateful that this series is being supported by the Melbourne Public Humanities Initiative at the University of Melbourne.